When we think of Lamar Odom, the story often comes in these little snapshots, right? A two-time NBA champ, a reality TV star, a tragic headline. But the real story, the one we're going to unpack here, is so much more complicated than that. It's a story of deep loss, unbelievable success, and a brutal, ongoing battle with addiction that just doesn't fit into any neat little box. All right, let's get into it.
So let's start with a number, 12. Now, this number represents a series of catastrophic medical events happening inside one man's body, any single one of which could have been fatal.
And then there's this one, 6. Another set of life-threatening things happening right around the same time. So, what on earth do these numbers actually mean?
Well, that's how Lamar Odom found out he had survived. That's what doctors told him after he woke up from a 4-day coma after a near-fatal overdose. It's a medical situation so extreme, he himself said it was scientifically impossible that he was still alive.
So you have to ask, how does a celebrated two-time NBA champion end up on the brink of death in the first place? Well, the story takes us to October 13th, 2015. Odom was found unconscious at the Love Ranch, which is a legal brothel out in Nevada, after being there for several days.
I mean, the details of how bad it was are just staggering. He was in a coma, on life support, his kidneys had completely failed. It turns out he'd been using cocaine and some herbal supplements. The doctors, they gave his family a really grim outlook, basically telling them to say their goodbyes. His survival wasn't just unlikely, it was, for all intents and purposes, unimaginable.
For Lamar, waking up from that wasn't just getting a second chance. He saw it as a sign, almost like divine intervention. He started to believe he was saved for a real purpose, to tell his story and maybe help other people who were struggling in the same kind of darkness.
But to really, truly understand how he ended up there, we have to rewind. We have to go way back. Because the seeds of Odom's addiction, they were planted long before the fame, before the championships, before the reality shows. They were planted in a childhood that was just defined by trauma. And this timeline, wow, it just lays out that foundation of pain so clearly. He's only 12 years old when he loses his mom to cancer. His dad was a heroin addict, so he was pretty much out of the picture. And then, in 2006, maybe the most unimaginable tragedy of all, his 6-month-old baby boy Jaden dies from SIDS. As one of the documentary's producers put it, it was like death was hunting him since he was a kid. And right there, that's the direct connection. Odom himself traces the very beginning of his substance abuse back to when he was 14 years old, right after his mother died. He was just a grieving kid in New York, and drugs became the way he tried to cope with a pain he just didn't know how to process.
And that pain, it didn't just go away. It followed him even when he reached the absolute peak of his career. On the surface, everything looked amazing. He was winning championships with the Lakers. But behind the curtain, his private struggle was just spiraling completely out of control. This really just captures that split reality perfectly. The public saw the beloved 6th man of the year, the guy on the hit reality show with his wife, Khloe Kardashian. But the private reality, that was a world of escalating cocaine use, constant cheating, and a life that was just built on secrets and lies.
In the documentary, Khloe Kardashian gets really honest about her role during this time. She admits she was an enabler, cleaning up after him in hotel rooms, paying off staff so the stories wouldn't leak to the press, just frantically trying to protect his image and their life, all while his addiction was getting worse and worse.
So after surviving the overdose, you'd think the next chapter would be a pretty straightforward comeback story. But Lamar's recovery, well, it was anything but simple. He literally had to learn how to walk and talk all over again, a completely humbling process.
And at first, the signs were really hopeful. He wakes up, he gets transferred to a hospital in LA, and Khloe, who'd put their divorce on hold, was right there by his side, managing all of his medical care. He spent months in this grueling physical therapy, slowly but surely fighting his way back.
So, that should have been it. The triumphant ending. A miraculous survival followed by a heroic recovery, right? But the story takes a really dark and completely unexpected turn.
And this is the moment that whole comeback story just shatters. It was 6 months after the coma. Khloe walked into the house she'd rented for him to recover in, and she smelled crack cocaine. She found him smoking it, and her reaction was just visceral. She said she punched him and told him he had to get out of the house.
And that right there brings us to the real heart of this story, as it's shown in the documentary. There is no tidy, clean Hollywood ending here.
Survival, it turns out, is just the first step in a much, much messier and more complicated journey. And that battle kept on going. In 2017, he got arrested for a DUI. After that, he checked himself into rehab. And at the time the documentary was released, his sobriety was very recent, very fragile, something like 56 or 57 days. It just shows you, his journey is not a straight line. So this table breaks it down perfectly, doesn't it? We all want to see that clean redemption story, where surviving means you're healed. But the reality for Lamar, and for so many people who struggle with addiction, is this messy, ongoing recovery, where there are no guarantees and definitely no tidy bow at the end. And really, that's where the power of this story lies, in its raw honesty. Odom doesn't try to pretend he has all the answers or that he's completely fixed. Instead, he gives us this vulnerable, honest look at a man who is still searching for meaning after surviving what should have been unsurvivable. Which leaves us all with one final, pretty heavy question to think about. When there is no simple victory, no clear finish line, what does it actually mean to recover? Lamar Odom's unfinished story forces all of us to rethink what healing really looks like.